AFC starting it off. I guess I'll start it off this week, man. 4th place. It was a little tough bottom of this division, to be honest with you, man. But I think I'm going to rock with Anthony Richardson and the Colts, man, in last place at 5-12. The Colts, man, question marks around JT and his commitment. They came out, Irsay said they didn't want to pay Taylor, so he's holding out. When will Anthony Richardson actually play? What we see in week 1. They got some weapons between Pittman, Alec Pierce, but to the Colts roster depth, there's really nothing there besides those 2 guys on the outside and, the unproven ability of Richardson. Probably going to be an electric player to watch on the field. Might squeak out a couple games here and there, but really the ceiling isn't too high, especially with JT just being that huge question mark right now. They picked up Kenyon Drake just for assurance, but come on, man. Colts 5-12. I think that's what they'll be at the end of the season.
Okay, yeah. I actually have the same exact record for the Colts at 5-12, but I have the Texans at 4-13, so I have them in 4th place. Okay. I think C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback, coming in and running the show. I think he'll be a solid option at QB. But when you look on that offensive side of the ball, like Dameon Pierce is their best weapon, and in terms of NFL rosters and talent, it's just really not else there on offense. They got an okay offensive line. Lemuel Tunsil will be there. Titus Howard, I think, although I just think he got injured today in camp. But a solid O-line. Defense, it's young. D'Amico Ryans will definitely come in and help improve that unit. They got Stingley on the outside. Jalen Petrie, a really solid young safety. And they just drafted Will Anderson. So there's some names. There's some talent on that side of the ball. But I just think it's a pretty young team overall on both sides of the ball. And I think you'll see a lot of growing pains for this Texans team. So I got them at 4-13.
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth. I almost put Texans the same record, 5-12. But I got them 6-11. You mentioned those young guys. Derek Stingley, one of the better young corners in this league. Pair him up with a veteran presence in Shaq Griffin on the outside, who's kind of been there, been a solid corner his whole career. You bring in Jimmy Ward, D'Amico Ryans' guy. You bring in Dalton Schultz, new addition. Robert Woods, with all his injuries and stuff like that, if he has a healthy year, we know he could be a solid, 1,000-yard receiver in this league.
At this point in his career,
maybe
I
not
think those days are behind him.
Maybe. But he could be a veteran president.
Yeah.
I think he'd get the 800, man.
I don't think Robert.
I only think that's possible if he's fully held, which is very, slim at this point.
He's
but
what,
probably
mid-30s?
Yeah,
no, I think he's older than that.
Either way, veteran wide receiver. They draft John Mechie III, solid pickup, and then
sat out all last year.
Yeah.
Cancer, I think. Something like that.
It would. You might be right, yeah. But he comes into the picture, young receiver. And then you mentioned Will Anderson, one of the better D linemen coming into this draft, and his ability just coming out kind of pro-ready. So you might see him make a couple big plays early on in the year. And then C.J. Stroud, obviously, we got to see what he can do at the quarterback position. I just give them the upper edge just barely, man. I don't know what it is, but I give them that 6 wins, just one game over the Colts. So I got the Texans in 3rd.
So I got the Colts in 3rd, and just mentioned I have them at the same record at 5-12. The QB position, Anthony Richardson, we kind of touched on it before in this podcast earlier, going through the draft and stuff. The upside is pretty much sky's the limit. He has all the upside there is, all the physical tools you want as a quarterback. Just can he, put it all together? Can he process the game correctly and make all the decisions and the throws you want your quarterback to make? Just a young quarterback on a team that has an okay roster. I think there's going to be some learning curves. You mentioned Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully he'll be there at the start of the season. Pittman and Alec Pierce, they draft Josh Downs, receiver out of UNC. Solid little option there. I think the weapons on the Colts are a lot better than the Texans, so I'll give them the edge there. O-line is going to be solid as well. You know, they like to run the ball, solid O-line. And then when you look on the defensive side of the ball, they lost Stephon Gilmore. That'll be a pretty huge hit. One of the best corners in the league. Although he's getting up there in age, he's still one of the better corners. But I like this D-line and linebacker core with Shaq Leonard. He's back fully healthy. DeForest Buckner, solid option on that D-line. And I think the big difference here for the Colts will be Shane Steichen coming over from the Eagles. He's had some history with Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts, and he kind of helped make both of those quarterbacks into what they are today. So if he can do that same thing with Anthony Richardson and kind of get him on that same trajectory as those two young quarterbacks we've seen in this league have success, I think the Colts could have a bright future. But for now, with the first year, I think there'll be a few bumps in the road, and I got them at 5-12.
Yeah. For second place, man, I got the Tennessee Titans coming in at 8-9. You know, I could see them winning 9 games, but most likely under that double digits, in my opinion. QB question marks, obviously. We know they have veteran Tannehill who can do it. Malik Willis, they're not buying into him. Will Levis has impressed so far in training camp. Word on the street. So who's going to be that QB? Is it, probably going to be Tannehill to start and then maybe Levis to finish? But at that point, you're kind of shaking things up, kind of giving up on playoff contention and, hopes. Unless they rock with Tannehill the whole year, stays healthy. And then they pair him up, they get D-Hop. And then they get Traylon Burks probably coming back this year. Had a solid rookie season when he was on the field. And then, defensively, they got Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best on the defensive side of the ball. Derrick Henry, obviously one of the best backs, if not the best back in the league, considering all the coverage he gets in the boxes, seeing 7, 8 man sometimes in that box. We know what he can do with the football in his hands. He's put the team on his shoulders to win games before. You probably see him do it again this year. But you had D-Hop as that extra element. We'll see if that really is a factor because we know the Tennessee Titans to just be run heavy, not really throw. Wide receivers get no love in that system. So we'll see if they switch it up a little bit this year. I just don't think their ceiling's too high, especially with that QB situation.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. I also have the Titans coming in at 8-9. Like you mentioned, a solid roster. Few no names around, but I think the biggest thing for this team will be Mike Vrabel. He's one of the best coaches in the league. The Titans will be a well-coached team. Exactly how they want to play football. They're going to play that, smash mouth, run the ball, hit hard on defense, pound the rock on offense. That's just their identity. And I think they lean into it more and more this season, especially with that quarterback position. You mentioned Tannehill. He's getting a little older, injuries last season. What is he at this point in his career? And then you mentioned Malik Willis. We saw him last year. Not too sure how much the team believes in him at this point, although I've heard, he's having a decent camp. He's showing some improvements. And then Will Levis, their second-round draft pick last year, I believe, has the upside, has the talent. Can he just, put things together? So you mentioned it could be a, revolving door there at the quarterback position. Besides the quarterback position, you mentioned Derrick Henry. He's, been consistently one of the best rushers in the football league. D-Hop, solid receiver, but both of these guys are kind of at the, tail ends of their career, getting up there in age. Can they produce and be healthy like they were in years past? Yet to be seen. I think the Titans will be, a solid middle-of-the-pack team just based off coaching and talent they have around their quarterback.
What was your record for him?
Same as you, 8-9.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, that leaves us with one team left. The Jacksonville Jaguars, man. I got them going 10-7, winning the AFC South. You get Calvin Ridley back. Christian Kirk coming off a huge, probably his best year he's had in the league. Travis Etienne, with his connection with him and T-Law coming out the backfield. They got a strong linebacker crew on defense. But other than that, that's kind of like question marks. They really don't have a front D-line, and the back end's a little shaky as well. So the defense is probably going to lose them some games here and there. T-Law coming off, a really good year, especially second half after struggling to start the 2022 season. Expect him to bounce, or continue his run. But 10-7. I think there's going to be some, more growing pains as their, second year in a true system with Trevor Lawrence. Calvin Ridley's going to make it explode. I mean, they're going to win the South, in my opinion, with no problem. But question is, how far can they go? And when those games get close, can we see them do it on a consistent basis where they can close out? I know we saw the Chargers come back in the wild card game, but we'll see this year, if they could keep it going. 10-7 for the Jags, winning that South Division.
All right. Well, I've been the known Trevor Lawrence and Jags supporter on this show dating back to last season. I was ahead of the curve, and it looks like
Facts.
I'm there again. I'm higher on him by 1 win. I got him at 11-6. I think Trevor Lawrence, builds, like you mentioned, builds off of that elite second half of the season. And this year he takes that leap into becoming a true number one franchise, elite tier quarterback. The weapons around, you touched on them, man. I mean, they literally revived Evan Ingram's career, all the memes and stuff of him in New York, can't catch a ball, he sucks, this and that. Goes down to Jacksonville, becomes one of Trevor Lawrence's favorite targets. He's back. They add Calvin Ridley. We've seen the training camp videos. We've seen the explosiveness. We know the talent he has. Can he come back and be consistent? And then you mentioned everyone else. Travis Etienne, there's weapons all around. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. There's some solid options on the offensive side of the ball for Trevor Lawrence. And then when you look at the defense, I agree with you. This is where the questions come in. I don't think they'll have any problems scoring the ball and running that offense. But defense, I mean, it's a younger group. You saw even in the playoffs, even though they came back and won in the first half, Justin Herbert was throwing all over him, scoring at ease. Austin Eckler was getting busy. So that defense definitely has some question marks, but you got some young pieces. The number one overall pick 3 years ago at this point, I guess, or 2 years ago, Trayvon Walker. You got Josh Allen, another high draft first round pick. Tyson Campbell, a solid corner out there on the outside. You mentioned linebacker core, Devin Lloyd. So there's some decent young pieces on this team. It's just, can they continue to improve? Can they get better? I agree where you said, the defense will probably be the reason they lose a couple games. They'll be in some shootouts and maybe the other team just has the ball last. But I think the Jags, will be a competitive team in the AFC playoffs, and I think they should look to win a playoff game or two.
Yeah, I said that front defensive side wasn't so good. I forgot, man, that boy Josh Allen over there. He's
I mean, they've invested some, draft capital in that D-line. It's just no one's taken that elite step yet. I mean, Josh Allen, I don't think he's really young at this point. He's been in the league for 4 or 5 years. A solid pass rusher, but Trayvon Walker, a freak athletically, definitely still has some growing to do. Tyson Campbell, I think he's going to his 3rd year, maybe 3rd year, so he's still young, but I think the defense definitely has room to improve, where the offense will probably be one of the best in the league.
Tyson Campbell, 23. Josh Allen, 26. Yeah. 7 sacks for Allen. So, not superstar numbers, but those are good pass rushers. Yeah.
Especially if you can get a little more production from Trayvon Walker, make it easier for Josh Allen. It'll be easier for Walker. So I think they can kind of play off each other. No Devin doubt. Lloyd hopefully takes a step up. He started off strong, kind of fell off a little bit in the second half, but, I mean, he was a rookie last year, so.
And then you got veteran I can never Fosaid Olokun, one of the best tacklers at the linebacker position. So, they got solid pieces there, but
they just got to put it together. Yeah, really all it is.
No doubt. I mean, we both got the Jags winning that AFC South. A little bit shaky. I mean, coming into the season, you will say that maybe the Titans are the only chance they have. We'll see with that division what goes on during the season, man.